Hello guys, hi, this is Ganesh Naik. I help finance professionals and students to excel in their career and become a better version of themselves through a lot of trainings and development and mentoring. And I also help them to clear FRM CFA level exam in the first attempt. Now over here, we are going to be talking about FRM level 2 important chapters for November 2022 exam. Now, before we start the video, just a small disclaimer. These all chapters are based on my understanding of talking to students who have cleared the exam were appeared for the previous exams on what has been tested historically. Okay, again, as a student, you should remember that the next exam can be different. Okay, they can test you on different topics also, but it is better to at least prepare on these chapters properly and then go for the exam. So, with this, we are going to start with the discussion of important chapters, each book wise. The first book, which is your market risk book. Okay, the first book. Now, over here, backtesting VAR and your VAR mapping. These two are very, very important exam. Now I have purposely added them at the top over here because I feel they are, if you look at the throughout market risk perspective, okay, these two books, okay, solidifies your concepts on VAR. Okay, it is taking you one level above to what you were in FRM level 1. So over here, definitely it helps you to test. The institute is primarily testing you whether you have actually understood VAR and whether the regulatory perspective of VAR is clear or not. So I expect around 1 to 2 question, depending upon how the institute wants to test you from these chapters. Okay, primarily when you backtesting part, the regulatory perspective, the red, green zones. Okay, you should be clear on that part and the basic calculation on how the backtesting happens, type 1, type 2 error logic also in the backtesting VAR part. Let us go towards the next section. In this entire book, there is a section which talks about term structure. Now, in that term structure, the first two chapters are very, very important because these are building blocks for the further models. Okay, and especially the size of the term structure, where they're giving you the introduction of how you will actually create a tree and why are we creating a tree of interest rate. Okay, to do valuation and part. This chapter brings you to the next chapter, which is the short term rate evolution, and there you start looking at the understanding where how expectation is going to impact, how volatility, how risk premium is going to impact. All of this is very, very important from the exam perspective. Okay, there is one more chapter after this which I have not talked about in this slide, but the model, okay, the Hooley model, the Isaac model, these are also important from the exam perspective. But as a chapter, I feel these two chapters can get tested in the theory part. So 1 to 2 question heavily, and I expect more or less theory from this chapter itself. Okay, volatility smiles, very, very important. Mark this, every exam it has been tested. The way backtesting and VAR mapping has been tested, volatility smile is definitely tested. In this, the two products, equity and FX, tested from the exam perspective. There is a concept of catastrophic part, risk part. You should also be clear on that concept. Okay, so important from the exam perspective, this single chapter again can contribute towards 1 to 2 questions. Let us move towards the next chapter or next book, sorry. Credit risk. Now, this book is entirely lengthy. Major focus of this book is on the counterparty risk. There are certain chapters which talks about models, but more or less the focus is on the counterparty risk. Now, there is a structured credit risk chapter in which they're talking more about the probability of how basically the probability of default and correlation within the pool is going to have an impact. That part is very, very important. Okay, they've also talked about the waterfall structure, how the calculation happens. Very, very important in the in the past exams. I have seen that they are asking you case study based questions on this. So I'm marking this chapter as double star. Very, very important. Do not skip anything from this chapter. Again, one question for sure that they will test you. Now, netting, closeout, and related aspect of the margin part, both of them are connected to your counterparty risk in detail. Okay. Now, this is just a building block, but what I've seen that both these chapters are combined and asked also. Okay, especially the collateral part. Okay, collateral, how does collateral is managed within the organization when they are entering into an OTC trade agreement? Okay, that is very, very important. So please make sure. I feel that combined these two chapters can ask you 1 to 2 question. Okay, understanding of securitization, the frictions part, very, very important. Every exam, more or less every student is tested on this concept. So please make sure that you're good on this part. Rest, there is nothing much in this chapter, only the frictions part that is very, very important. CVA, again, double star. Why? Because historically I've seen that few of the students have got 3 to 4 questions connecting this chapter of CVA with other chapters. Okay, and they saw that the flavor of the entire paper, entire credit risk part was CVA. Okay, so please make sure that you're good with those formulas, the logic of the CVA, and also the wrong way risk concept which is there in the chapter. Overall, this chapter is double important, very, very important. Do not skip it. Okay, future value and exposure. Okay, historically, they have been testing more or less on the understanding in the sense of theoretical part of it. Okay, I also expect the same to continue for the next exam. Primarily, if you look at the entire chapter, there are a lot of graphs and all of it. I don't see institute testing much on that part. Okay, they might test you 1 or 2 concept in the exam here and there. More importantly, potential future exposure. Potential future exposure is important. Okay, how it is different than VAR, that is also important. So that part, I expect 1 question to come from this chapter. Next is retail credit scoring part. Now there is one explicit concept over there which talks about how do we define scoring, which scoring is good, which scoring is bad. Okay, how do we define your model for retail scoring is good or not? Okay, the accuracy of the model, that is important for this exam. Historically, that has been tested. I expect 1 question definitely to come from this exam. There are other chapters also which are important. Okay, but I have not explicitly highlighted them. Okay, I will be coming up with one more video which talks about the concepts based on each chapter, talking about the importance part. Okay, let us go to the operation risk and resilience. Most of the students they face problem in this because it's very vast. Okay, more than 20-25 chapters. Okay, and the it's very slightly boring to read this book at an overall level. But from the exam perspective, I'll just highlight what important concepts or chapters are being tested. Okay, principles of operation risk. Even though this chapter might seem very easy, they are asking you more or less on the case study basis. That is what I have heard from the historical perspective. That if you're a CRO of an organization, you're trying to implement operation risk, what will happen, what logic, what principles you will connect to, all of this is tested. So 1 question definitely from this. Risk culture, there is one more chapter on banking risk culture. Historically in the exams I've seen that this culture concept was heavily tested across operation risk questions. Okay, so very good chance that they might test you on this part. This chapter there is one more banking culture part, though both of them can be combined and asked and test you on the basic understanding of culture, how it impacts your risk management. Validating a rating model is also important and marking it as star. Okay, from the exam perspective, they are testing you with respect to a lot of theory based question over here. Risk capital and attribution case study based questions can come over here. So please make sure that you are overall the understanding of why we are doing the RAROC part, what RAROC represents, how it is used in the industry. Okay, that has to be very, very clear. There is a 4 quadrant part in the last part of the chapter that is also important. Marking this as star, again 1 to 2 question from this, 1 question from this. Risk management 1 to 2 question. Risk culture. Capital planning at large holding companies. This has not been a very favorite topic historically, but I feel that they can get tested. So that is why I just added it based on my discussion with the students. There are more chapters, guidance on managing outsourcing risk and regulation based on OTC. Even though these chapters seems very small, 1 or 2 pages, they have been tested in the last exam. 1 question has also come. So the purpose of adding these chapters is to don't underestimate them. Okay, and they can get tested in your exam. Okay, further capital regulation, these are all Basel related part. When you look at all the 4 chapters, the last 2 chapters are primarily theory. There is one more chapter, FRTB, in your market risk book, but these 2 chapters primarily drives the basic core of Basel. Okay, more or less you should be clear on the rules. These 2 chapters are very, very important. Okay, they are tested in the exam, and it by testing these chapters it gives them a confidence. The institute gets confidence that you are good on the nuances of the Basel regulation. That is why these chapters become very important. Operational resilience, historically this was not a chapter. They have added these chapter as a part of the operational risk because resilience was generally looked from a different perspective. Now the industry is talking about discussing resilience with operation risk itself. So I expect there is one more chapter, principles of operation resilience, or that those group of chapter can get tested. around 1 to 2 question again from this chapter. From the basal part, I expect 1 to 3 question from the exam perspective. They can ask in combination 3 question, like that can also happen. Okay, liquidity and treasury risk management part from the entire exam perspective, the first chapter, which is a building block, is very, very important. I expect around 1 to 2 uh, concept being tested from this part, because if you look at the first chapter, it is very, very heavy. Okay, in terms of there are so many things that they wanted to cover in this chapter. Liquidity and leverage, from the perspective, the first part, liquidity is more important as compared to the leverage part. If you look at the entire chapter, it is divided into two parts, liquidity and the leverage. Liquidity is very important. Okay, and leverage, I've not heard being tested heavily. Okay, the balance sheet, economic balance sheet, and all that is not heavily being tested. Liquidity and reserve management strategy, very, very important. I expect questions being tested in this exam. So please make sure that all the strategies are clear and you're good with the concept. Liquidity risk reporting is added from the perspective that I've not heard much of it from the chapter, but there is a concept. I feel that stress testing, okay, can get tested in one of the previous exams. I think so. Last November, the entire theme was on stress testing. So definitely, you should focus on that aspect. Monitoring liquidity, again, one more chapter added from my understanding. I've heard, I've talked to people, so I got a fair idea that this might get tested. This is just from the caution perspective. I've added it. Next is managing and pricing deposit, very, very important from the exam perspective. The approach to do the pricing of the deposit, that part, okay, they have given you strategies, that is very, very important. Do not skip that. Repo, entire chapter is important. Double star. Okay, so 1 question definitely from here, 1 to 2 question definitely from here. Especially the special rate, general rate, all of this is important. This chapter is more on the understanding base. Okay, there's one simple calculation also. There are two calculation actually in this chapter. One is the basics of the repo and till what time it will remain special. Those two calculation you should definitely be clear on what is happening in that. What is the calculation parameters, the formula, you should be clear. Okay, liquidity transfer pricing. Okay, in the November exam, I heard a lot about this. In the May, I've not. So I'm just adding it from the caution perspective. Change in risk management. This is also I'm marking it a star. 1 question I can expect easily from this chapter. How banks are managing a asset liability. Very, very important. So 1 question, short, short. Okay. Let us move towards risk management and investment management book. A lot of people they slightly underestimate this book because when you read it is somewhat connected to your level one. It is a next building block of the CAPM theory and APT theory. It goes like that. From that perspective, portfolio risk is very, very important. 1 to 3 2 theory, sorry, 1 to 2 calculation based question can also come. Marginal VAR, component VAR will definitely come in the exam. Okay. Alpha, more from the understanding perspective that when you're running a regression on the historical data, the Berkshire Hathaway, how exactly your alpha is changing. Okay. What is the T value or how hypothesis testing is telling you about the strategy. That is also very, very important. There is also a concept related to beta. Okay. The beta of looking at the output of the regression, can you tell about the strategy that they are adopting? That is also heavily tested. So around 1 to 2 question definitely from this part. VAR and risk budgeting is also important. It is kind of connected to your portfolio risk management. Again, I am highlighting it 1 to 2 part. Portfolio performance evaluation I've just added as a caution that historically there was some part in the last exams. So I'm just adding it as a caution too, so that you just read it. Okay. So this is your risk management and investment management book. Current issues every year, as everybody knows that every year it is changed. Okay. From the perspective, the rise of digital money, it was I think so back in 2019, and again it is added. So I expect rise of digital money to be thorough. I expect 1 to 2 question definitely from this part. Okay, now see the size of current issues is going to be very low. Okay, so when I'm saying 1 to 2, so I'm just making a statement to help you understand that this is important over here. Beyond LIBOR part. Okay, over here the logic is that this chapter has not been removed. So I expect they're giving importance to this concept. Okay, how LIBOR new benchmark rate is going to come. SOFR is being highlighted. So I expect I'm marking this as star also. COVID is being highlighted from the perspective that recently what challenges we have faced in the during the COVID part, they can ask you one question on that part also. With respect to artificial intelligence, this is also the previous year book chapter itself, and in the previous year it was tested, so I expect this to be tested again. So marking this as star. With this, we have almost completed the important concepts part for level two, important chapters for level two. Now, a lot of people who don't know what we do, so we at Fintelligence, we help students to help and clear the FRM and CFA exam. We provide videos, we provide question bank, we conduct live sessions, also live online sessions. We provide classroom sessions, also recorded videos, question banks for them to prepare in a better manner and in a structured manner. That is what is our USP. I help them to clear them in a structured manner. Okay, in case if you have any queries, you can put it on the comment section. We'll try to address it as soon as possible. Okay, if you want any guidance, you can reach out to us on our WhatsApp number. Okay, and we can talk over there. If there is a point we can connect, I can definitely give you a call back to understand what how can I help you better. Okay, so thank you very much for watching the video. If you like our content, do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you very much, guys.